So people are inspired in many different ways. A lot of people are inspired by artwork, others by music. And some people are inspired by other people through their trials and tribulations and their triumphs and setbacks. Well, other than music, the thing that inspires me most are my two daughters, Hannah and Piper. They've inspired me to completely change my approach to life and the way that I look at a lot of different things. One of the ways that they've inspired me is to find the humor in everyday life and life's situations. A couple of years ago, when Hannah was about 4 years old, she overheard me using some language that I shouldn't have been using around her delicate little ears. And she came up to me and she said, "Daddy, what do those words mean?" And I looked over at my wife and she looked over at me with a look that said, "You said it, you explain it." So I sat Hannah down and I explained to her that the words that I used were pretty mean and I really should not be saying those words. And she especially should not be saying those words, because those words are used to describe a very mean person, and you really shouldn't describe people that mean. She seemed to understand, and I was feeling pretty good that I was able to explain away my mistake of using that particular phrase in front of her, and we moved on. Then a couple of weeks later, I came home from work, and this is when I was working a night shift at Owens Corning, and the night shifts were 6 at night to 6 in the morning. And I came home, it was really early in the morning, I took a quick shower, got myself all cleaned up, and the rest of that day I had to fix my wife's car. But I needed to go to AutoZone to get some parts to fix it. Well, my wife was still sleeping, but Hannah, being 4 years old, was wide awake, bright-eyed, and bushy-tailed. So I took her with me to go to AutoZone and get the parts to fix Mommy's car. We get to AutoZone, it's about 20 minutes to 9, but wouldn't you know it, AutoZone didn't open until 9 o'clock. So we're sitting there in the parking lot, and I look across the street and there's a hobby store, which had an open sign in the window. Not only was it open, but it had some of those giant build-it-yourself doll houses in the window. And I thought, this is perfect, 20 minutes, we'll go look at the doll houses, AutoZone will be open, this is great. So we walk across the street, walk right in the door, we're looking at the doll houses, when from the back room out comes this old grumpy guy who just starts yelling at us, "How dare you come into my store when I'm not even open yet?" And going on and on about young people and respecting their elders and basically just acting like a grumpy old guy that hadn't had his bran muffin yet that morning. I tried explaining that we saw an open sign in the window, but apparently it was one of those signs where it always said open, but it wasn't really open until you turned the light on to make it illuminate that he was open. And he never did explain why the door was unlocked if he was closed. But either way, I apologized and we started walking out the store. The whole time, the guy still just, right in front of my tiny little girl, just yelling at us and young people these days and the whole 9 yards. So we're walking towards the door to leave this guy's store, and Hannah, this tiny little girl in pigtails, looks up to me and she goes, "Daddy," and I quote here so I'm not fined $1, "Daddy, is that guy a douchebag?" The only thing I can think to say, I looked down at her and I said, "Yes, Hannah, that guy." We walked out of the store. I never did look behind me to see what the face was on the old guy. I'm sure it was pretty priceless. He was right behind us to lock the door. So situations like that remind me, that, what could you do? Sometimes you just have to laugh and appreciate the humor in some of the situations that life throws at you. The other thing they've inspired me to do is to be truthful, not only with other people, but even with myself. That may sound easy, but if you watch children, children don't know about little white lies. They have no filter. Children tell it how it is. I'm reminded of that when, about the same time, Hannah says, "Daddy, why are you so fat?" You kind of had to stop her. "Well, why am I so fat?" "Well, I don't don't eat my vegetables. But if you look deeper, it really makes you think about yourself and your approach to certain things and how people that have no filter see you and the things that you do. My younger daughter, Piper, was the only one who, when my wife came home with a new haircut the last time, told her that her new haircut was ugly. The only one. Honestly, she was the only one that was honest. But I think we can learn a lot from the truthfulness, because in addition to being truthful, little kids don't get their feelings hurt the way adults do. One of the other ways they've inspired me is to be open-minded and accepting of other people's thoughts and opinions and their perspective on different situations. Two kids can be arguing together about something that neither one of them knows anything about, but they will come to a conclusion, they will listen to each other, they'll have give and take, and they'll come up with an answer to the question that they're pondering together. They'll decide what to play when one of them wants to play tag and the other one wants to play in the sandbox. And next thing you know, they're both out riding bikes. They have that give and take that we as adults don't often have. The other thing, probably the hardest thing for me to try to change about myself that they've inspired me to do, is to try to be able to adjust my attitude at a moment's notice. Kids are great at this. At least my two girls always have been. They can be having the worst day of their lives. They can be absolute little demons running around the house, attitudes, yelling at mommy, the whole 9 yards. Sit them down, have a little talk with them, give them a piece of candy. Next thing you know, it's the best day of their life. Like you flick a switch, and they're perfect again. I don't know about you guys, but when I sit down at the end of a long day, I can usually see if something happened in the morning, it can ruin my whole day. It really can. So being able to flick that switch and change my attitude at a moment's notice, and not hold a grudge, and different things that the kids can do that I know I personally have a very hard time doing. Imagine what it would be like if everyone could be more childlike, especially our politicians. What if our politicians, both in Washington and all throughout the country, what if they could remain open-minded? What if they could see the perspective of other people, listen to their reasoning for why they have the thoughts that they do? And then they could compromise. We would avoid government shutdowns. We would get so much stuff done if everybody would just act more like children. Listen to what the other one has to say what you have to say, get mad, fight it out, come up with a good compromise, and then flip that switch and be friends. Go out and have a beer. We accomplished something today. That's a good job. As Toastmasters, I'd like to think that most of us are pretty open-minded. So I'm not really here to inspire you to open your minds or change the way that you operate yourselves, but more to share your opinions in a constructive way. Remember to flick your switch after you get upset with someone and share your opinion, and spread the message of compromise, understanding, listening, all the things that we work at Toastmasters to get better at doing. Mr. Toastmaster.